Hi everyone. We are Team Starfish from ISB. We're the national champions of Johnson & Johnson Quest, which is an annual competition that Johnson & Johnson holds every year. This was the seventh version of the Quest competition that we participated in. We were a team of four people. I'm Arpita. I'll give you a brief about myself. I graduated from VIT in 2016 in electronics and communication. Then I worked in Ford Motor Company, after which I joined a digital marketing agency, and then I moved to ISB. So, Namrata, you
Yeah. Hi, my name is Namrata. I'm an engineer as well, but I switched out to finance and I joined KPMG's early stage corporate finance team. From there, I moved on to an impact investing VC called Asha Impact. At ISB, I majored in finance and I will be joining BCG once this lockdown's over. Kiran?
Hi, so I'm Kiran. I did my BTech in electrical engineering from IT Madras. Then after that, I worked for a year in Texas Instruments as a digital design engineer. After that, I had a short stint in my own family's business, and then I joined ISB, and met all these wonderful. Yeah.
Hey everyone, yeah, so Tushar here. I'm a computer engineer from Mumbai University. I worked at ZS for almost 3 years as an associate consultant, and my engagements included like clinical side of research as well as data analytics as well. So that's the brief about like my pre-ISB journey. At ISB, I majored in marketing strategy and public policy, and now I'm joining a health tech startup, like working out of the CEO's office there. So
Okay, talking
over to
about the
you,
interesting
Arpita.
things about the team as well. Namrata was our consultant lady, so she would, for each problem statement that we got, she would divide it into 2x2 matrices and then we'd go to solve it. Kiran was a tech guy and also the memory guy. Every conversation that we had with anyone, Kiran had it stored in his memory. Tushar was the creative guy. Everything creative was done by Tushar, and I was the market research lady. So I was the one who was talking to patients. So that's about the team competition. It was a three-phase competition, but in ISB there was an additional phase because there are two campuses. So in the first phase, the problem statement was open to all. Teams of four were formed throughout both the campuses, Hyderabad and Mohali, and top five teams were selected. After which there was another round wherein top two teams, one from each selected, and then from these two teams there was one more round from which we selected, and then we went to the final. So the structure of the project, there were problem statements given to each team. So each college gets a different problem statement every year. So this year we had a problem statement which was based in immunology. So it's a department of Janssen, part of Johnson. So there are two immunological diseases that we were given to work on. One was ankylosing spondylitis, and the second one was inflammatory bowel disease. And the idea was to understand what the patients of these chronic diseases go through, what their trials and tribulations are, to spend time with the patients to see how they live their lifestyle, and to come up with something called a patient support program, which is in addition to the medicines that Janssen provides for these diseases. So, patient support program looks something like additional support in terms of discounts for medicines, or support in terms of mental health, or other kinds of support. And the second aspect was how to market this patient support programs to the doctors and to the patients. So that was the idea of the project. And for the structure of the deck, Tushar will walk you through how we did the structure of the deck.
Yep. Thanks for the walkthrough, Arpita. So this is talking about the final deck that we presentation at the finale at like this grand venue in Mumbai after a lot of research. Something very close to all our hearts. Just like the key differentiator at the start for any teams was those teams that had put a very nice structure in the first place, and those which were not communicating as properly, right? So what we did upfront was set the expectation of what we are going to cover, and gave an agenda at the start of it, so that if there's anything missing, that would eventually be covered in the question and answer session. After that, what we did was also explain what our interpretation of J&J's problem statement was. And we thought that really very nicely summarized our understanding in depth of their problem statement, and also explain how we went beyond that problem statement and also solved some other pieces for them. After that, the main slide, which probably like explained all our work, like good MBA students, we quantified everything that we had done at the start of the presentation, where we said, okay, this was our approach, what is the methodology followed, what is the roadmap from day zero when we got the problem statement to the day we were delivering it on the finale event. And after that, we also explained a few pieces which were not, let's say, understood to everyone within the approach. So it's like double clicking on a few pieces, like what exactly was design thinking or what exactly was our survey methodology, etc. Post which we had a very beautiful illustration on of all the patient insights that we had gathered from almost 20 plus patients and a lot more stakeholders within the therapeutic area, and summarized it in empathy maps. And I'm guessing Namrata or Kiran will walk you through the exact details of what that means. Eventually, we also explained how we don't interpret this just as a patient-centric solution, but also layer in a lot more pieces to that, understanding that healthcare conditions by themselves don't just mean the patient, but the family associated around that, the ecosystem, which is not just pharma, but even insurers, service providers, etc. Explaining all of that as the key pain points, we then went on to explain like a brief summary of what our proposed solution was in a grand reveal sort of a format. And after that, went into the implementation details of each of our recommendations to explain that it's not just something that we are thinking about, but can actually be put in a timeline, can be tracked, and eventually setting metrics to them so that we define what success on each of those solutions would mean. And then finally, like the icing on the cake was what we did is also showed a few demos of how some solution, like I mean, these are not obviously industry grade, but very nicely created visuals, information decks, and even a VR demo set that we actually spent time on creating, so that they know that it is also like if incremental work is already been done, it will be easier for them to start onto the solutioning and to show that it is practical and not just like something that's been in our heads but can never actually get on the ground. After that, we had a lot of annexure slides, and I would want to emphasize that these are very critical when it comes to like a tiebreaker amongst the best teams, because there you see top class presentations by teams and the readiness to even get into the details when you're asked a question, and showing that you have proactively put it there and then was something that we believed was like a differentiator also for us. So that's essentially the walkthrough. Now Namrata will talk about what happens after you present such a deck and you're like put in the line of fire for questions.
Yeah.
Over to you.
So essentially, what ended up happening was all four of us were on the stage, and we had a panel. So these panels were heads of each department at J&J, and these are the guys who would go take our recommendations and actually implement it on the ground. So they just don't care about a fancy PPT. They care about making a difference in the lives of their patients out there. So the questions were more around going in depth into the insights that we had on our customers. So like at what point do these patients drop off their therapy area, basically integrities of that, as well as they were able to draw insights from what we had said to other solutions that they had implemented and actually started brainstorming with us about how it could be implemented elsewhere, and talked about the larger picture when it came to policy. Now, these are questions that were just specific to our current problem statement, but like we discussed, there were different problem statements for each team. And just a word of advice, we saw a couple of teams that when they were asked a question, they would pause for a long time, form a huddle, discuss it amongst themselves, and then present the answer. And that didn't work out very well on stage. You have to come across as someone who can talk on the spot, who is able to present, like I'm doing right now, and should be able to, basically present the solutions in a correct way. So they were quite thrilled with this. And the best part about this Q&A is that it didn't just stop with this competition. We continued to engage with J&J after our competition as well. And they asked us a bunch of questions about things we saw in the field, and we were able to communicate that back. And that was then implemented by the firm. So it was a great experience in that sense. So we basically covered two important subjects, that was design thinking and market research. And whatever solutions that we had, we implemented it within that design thinking framework. And so that's something that they could take away and actually use in other therapy areas as well. And the second thing that we brought to the table was great market research, which Arpita was a key focus area. And we also reached out to a lot of ISB professors who gave us insights on how to do this on the field. And so anything we learned in the ISB classroom, we immediately went ahead and implemented it in the field. So that was a great learning experience. Kiran's going to walk you through our key differentiators.
Yeah. So the most important factor for our victory was that we hit the ground running. Right on the first day that we met, we scheduled meetings with, as Namrata mentioned, the professors and also people who are on the field. So I remember on the very first day, we had a meeting with the head of IBD in one of the most leading hospitals in India. And we ended up learning that she was also an advisor for J&J themselves. So apart from this, we also proactively went to World IBD Day events where we could meet with a whole bunch of patients, talk to their caregivers, also understand it from multiple different perspectives like dietitians, therapists, and the doctors themselves. So the most important factor, and I cannot emphasize it enough, is doing enough primary research. If you don't talk to the people, then the solution you present won't have enough relevance. And one more thing that really helped us in communicating what we found out was the use of design thinking frameworks. So we happened to chance upon something called an empathy map, which really helped us describe what a patient is. We had over 70 interviews conducted with multiple different stakeholders that I had mentioned earlier, and to assimilate all that information into something that defines who the end patient is was one of the key factors in helping us communicate what we could, what we found out. Yeah. And also, Tushar had put in an extra amount of effort and initiative in this. We also created a lot of solutions, handouts. We even went to the extent of creating VR demos that we made all the panelists view it after our presentation. So this was also the extra length that we took, which helped us perform better than the rest of the teams. Yeah. Coming to the time that we spent around 3 whole months on this project, and for me, it was in fact the most definitive aspect of my entire ISB journey. So yeah, in fact, to such an extent that after this, Tushar and I are joining the same company also. So yeah. So we really ended up living, breathing, eating J&J only. This problem statement. In fact, we were all holed up in Namrata's studio for the entire 3 months, studying there for exams or any other thing. So yeah.
Namrata, you want to tell about the last final exam which we went
Oh man,
right after
yeah.
the final?
Yeah. So essentially, what happened was we had our J&J finals in Mumbai, and we are from the Hyderabad campus, so we had to fly down. We filmed like entire day of presentations. We were the last team to present. We finally won. They gave us a big check, and we had a flight to catch early in the morning. So we reached Hyderabad only at 3 o'clock in the morning, and we had to keep studying because 9 o'clock we had exams, and we gave two back-to-back exams, which we couldn't have passed if Kiran was not teaching us the entire way. So somehow we managed to survive that, and it's very difficult and challenging doing that in a one-year MBA for sure. But if you're dedicated to the case competition, it's a enriching experience.
And just to add, like what exactly were the incentives finally? Like what is the reward after all of this?
Yeah.
Definitely, I met this amazing bunch of people that I'm going to be friends with all my life. Apart from that, it's also a key takeaway when it comes to applying the concepts live, like some of us already mentioned, and whichever field you choose to go to after your MBA experience, you're going to be creating one or the other business that is actually catered for someone, and trying to understand that stakeholder in as much depth is what such competitions help you learn with a live engagement. And I mean, all of us can vouch for it that it's been really helpful now that we've like at least started like the preparation for our work after ISB. And yeah, apart from that, getting to fly back like within the term, which is like very rare for ISB, getting the check, which was a lot of money. So I think no regrets at all there. So please go all out. Yeah, and it was like a great experience. If anyone wants to add anything more, I think.
It's one thing that Tushar said that I completely agree to is go all out. There are a lot of participants who, or a lot of other competitions for which we participated, but we prepared in the last, let's say, 2 days or 3 days. For this specific competition, we were in it throughout the 3 months. So much so that even during classes, we would think, okay, what part of this can we use for J&J? So I remember coming back, each one of us coming back from a couple of classes and saying, okay, this we can implement in this way for J&J. Right? So go all in, and the rewards are going to be worth it.